welcome to this Better Business Bureau Building Trust in Trying Times webinar. I am your host, Dale Dixon. So good to have you with us. This is a live webinar as we record this at the top of the hour on a Tuesday, May the 12th, I think it is. So good to have you with us. Accredited businesses is our focus for this live webinar. We are going to record and post this for public viewing later on, but we're glad to have you with us live for this webinar today. You know, now is the time to maintain and to strengthen your company culture. No matter if your business is continuing to work from home or if you're starting to make plans to reopen, this is the time, and that's the focus of today's webinar. And we're really excited to have our guest today, who you're going to meet soon. I will tell you, though, that we're working to make this interactive. So as we go through this conversation, if you have questions, please use that Q&A box at the bottom of your Zoom window. And when you do that, we're going to be watching those questions. You can also watch the questions that come in, and you have the ability to upvote. So you'll see a little thumbs up there on the screen as you will look at the list of questions. If you see a question that is relative to you, be sure and hit that thumbs up so that we're able to see those questions that mean the most to most of our audience and answer those first out of the gate when we start the Q&A session toward the end of this webinar. As I said, we have a host of resources. This webinar will be added to that list of resources. Those resources are available at a web page that we're going to put up in the chat box, so you can grab that URL and use it to help your business through these trying times come out on the other side ready to thrive. That's what this is all about. Now, on to our guest today. We are so fortunate to have Chris Gislow. He's the Vice President of the Fury Group. And Chris is a Vice President, I should say, a 39-year-old West Coast public relations, public affairs, and social media firm. That's the Fury Group. It's based in Seattle. Chris and the Fury team help clients across healthcare, social good, real estate, hospitality, and sports tell their story one conversation at a time, they like to say. Chris, so good to have you with us on the webinar today.
Yeah, Dale, thanks for having me. Great to be with you, and thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely. So with that, we're going to turn it over to you and let you provide the presentation today.
Absolutely. And I think before I jump into the presentation, I just want to take a second and say, first off, thank you to the Better Business Bureau for all that you guys are doing for accredited members. We're proud to be one and proud to be in have these conversations with you and also take advantage of the resources. But before we jump in and talk about company culture, I'd love to just hear, how are you doing? How are you and your teammates doing? How are you coping?
We're doing, I'm going to say we're doing really well. And I had a chance to look through some of the slides that you're going to take our audience through. And it was really encouraging to be able to say, oh, yeah, we're doing those. And that's why that works so well. Chris is going to explain this. We've increased our level of communication inside the organization. And we have been really strategic about how we've approached this to keep teams united and to be working across an organization that is in multiple states with more than 100 employees. It's been encouraging to see how what you're going to show us today really does work. I would like to say that we're a great example of it.
That's awesome. I'm so glad to hear that. And I'm sure those who've joined us today, I'd love to hear what examples they have as well. While we're proud of the culture we've had during these last few months, we're trying to also innovate ourselves and keep bringing new opportunities for our team and give them opportunities to just make ourselves stronger as we go. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so we can get going here on the presentation. Before I do that, I do want to take just a quick moment and say thank you to all the frontline workers and everyone who's keeping us safe, as well as those essential businesses out there that are also taking care of us and keeping us moving and helping us have the opportunity to have these conversations. So as Dale mentioned, I'm with the Fury Group. We're a Seattle-based public relations firm with a focus on West Coast businesses with clients from Alaska down to San Diego. And we are celebrating our 39th year in business coming up on the Big 40. But when we think about the company culture and what you're trying to do in this phrase that I know we've heard so many times, and I don't know if I want to hear it again in the future, is the new normal. Is first thing is we got to do is we got to remember to play the long game. Trying to figure that out, trying to figure out what your business looks like. Think of it not as these short-term times where we're trying to just keep ourselves moving from day to day, but how do we approach this from a long game? And when we go there, it's important to think we're all in this together. We know that the business marketplace has changed, but we don't know how much. We don't know how it's going to change on a daily, even weekly basis, or even looking out into 2021 and beyond. So getting comfortable with that and leaning into that is a good place to start, and knowing that everybody's facing the same thing. Although traffic and sales may have leveled out, the impacts of COVID-19 are going to be felt for months to come, and are felt to varying degrees, both within your industry or your location or wherever you might be, and your peers that you're working with. Taking a look and focusing your needs to shift on maintaining your business, as well as starting to planning for reopening if you're in a community that hasn't shifted to a reopening posture, is really critical. And for those who have shifted to a reopening posture, what are you doing that's working well? What are you hearing from your customers, your business partners? Thinking through that, seeing if you need to make any tweaks along the way is really important. And then connect with your community, especially a community like this, a community where you've got others that are going through the exact same thing. They're trying to make their business work on a daily basis. Connect with them, talk to them, try and help them be successful, but also take away some tools and key learnings that you can use for your business as well. Now, turning specifically to maintaining company culture, I think it's really important to take a look at some sentiments like this. I'm seeing this all over Twitter and other social media platforms, and also hearing it from folks who, even those who worked from home exclusively for years on end, is that even if you're working from home, it's not really working at home. You're at a crisis you're at home during a crisis trying to work. The more that you can recognize that, the more that you can understand that, not be as hard on yourself from a productivity standpoint, the better. And I think that applies to those that you work with as well, whether that's your business partners or your employees themselves. Giving each other a little bit of grace, giving each other a little bit of understanding, and going deeper and not expecting the same type of efficiency we might have had before is a good place to start. And something that I heard from one of the CNN commentators is, it's okay to not be okay. I gotta say personally, this week things are going really well, feeling really jazzed up, getting a lot of work done, having some great conversations with our customers and clients and partners. But other days it may not be okay, and it's okay for that right now. So it's okay to be not be okay. But when you're thinking of how you can get to okay, the first thing I would do when you're thinking on company culture is not what you directly expect. First thing you need to do is work on your business. Take a step back. We always ask for these times. We always think of these times where, what would we do if we had the pause button? And this isn't the pause button that any of us wanted. It's not the stop that any of us thought was going to be coming our way to be able to help us innovate our business. But we have it right now, or you're in the middle of whatever the next version of pause looks like. So take that time to really take a step back and work on your business. Look at your processes and tools to make sure you have everything to keep your team safe, your customers, your clients safe, your business partners safe now, as well as into reopening, as well as into what happens whenever we return to the new society that we're going to be facing, whenever we get out of whatever phases we're in, wherever you are. Can you innovate? Something that's big or small. And I'd really encourage you to go back and look at the conversations that the BBB has had on this subject. And I know one of the last webinars series was on this very topic of innovation. Innovation doesn't have to be a massive overhaul of your business. It doesn't even have to be a small overhaul of your business. It can be something that just makes you take a step back and looks at how you are going to be moving your business forward. For us, a big portion of our business is in the crisis communication space. And we're taking a step back and saying, how do we reach our partners, both old and new, and let them know and remind them that we're there for them in times of need. It's not a big innovation for us, but it's an innovation we hadn't been focusing on because we were focusing on the day-to-day and the back and forth that the rhythms of business that we all go through. Reach out to your professional networks as well as your legal and financial teams to make sure that you're up to date on all of the latest local, regional, and national support systems. They might have changed since the last time you talked about them. They might have been updated. There might be new opportunities. Just make sure you know what's out there and what's available to you so you can make an informed decision from a business owner standpoint on what works best for your business. Go out and talk to your employees. What do they need so that they can do their jobs? One of our employees, I reached out to them, and there are two of them that share a house together, and they said, we're just out of coffee. So, simply putting together a coffee order for them was an easy way to help them do their jobs and help them, keep motivated and give them just a little surprise along the way that helps them with their day-to-day. And that was an easy step on my standpoint. Take a look at your healthcare provider or whatever benefits you offer your employees, and see if there's any resources that they've made available during this time to help, whether that be mental health services or other counseling things, and share it with your team. Be open, over communicate about those things, make sure they have the resources so that they know they can get the care that they need in whatever form they need it to be. And then also, lastly, the most important thing is check in with your vendor partners and your clients and customers and ask them what they need. Don't lead with you first. Don't be selfish. Don't say, what do I need in this moment? We know down the line you're going to ask them for the business again. You may be asking them now in different ways, but check in with them. Just see where they're at, meet them where they're at, see if you can help them with anything they're working on from their business standpoint or what they need in their life to succeed. And then they'll come back to you in the future times. I completely promise they will. But when it comes to your team, yourself, and your internal communication strategy, make sure you're having regular touch points with your team. You know, for us before this, we were at 3 days work from home normally. So this wasn't a huge switch for us, but going completely remote changed a lot of the way that we do things. Previously, we would only get together as a team on Mondays for about an hour where we just talk about kind of the business of the firm, what's going on, what's coming up for clients, things like that. And that's something that we still do. As you'll see here, our cadence has changed just a little bit. So our Monday staff meeting, it's the same. It's what we've always done. We talk about the business for the firm. We've planned the week out. It gives us a moment to check in on the team and talk about our marching orders for the week. But the things that we've added later in the week are just ways that we can make little opportunities to touch base with our teams. Wednesdays, we have a 4 o'clock or 3:30 sync with everybody where we log on and we take 30 minutes where we do either an icebreaker where we ask each other a fun question to learn more about each other, or we do a fun event. Last week's was bingo. We had a great time doing 3 cards of bingo and gave away a gift card to the different winners, a small little gift card to a business of their choice. This week, we're doing trivia with a similar element of it, just making it a fun time to be able to check in with each other, see each other's faces, and just catch up. And then we also just ask, does anyone need anything? And then we try and solve that problem if they do, whether it be from a business standpoint, a personal standpoint, anything we can do to try and make it better for them. And then on Fridays, we get together over lunchtime. That's if people can make it. We know that conflicts come up, so there's no pressure to do so. There's no agenda. It's just your typical kind of water cooler talk, check in with each other, and just say hi before we head into the weekend, and one last touch point. And then we also have a place where we let our personalities shine. Since we don't get that regular water cooler talk in the office, we use Slack as our inter-office communication channel to have non-work discussions. And a few of the channels that have popped up that are having fun kind of back and forths is our Furry Friends channel, where we post all of our pets and their latest antics, whether they be cat or fish or dog. We have the Foodie group, which is where people share their latest sourdough starter adventures or their cooking and restaurant content. There's the Run Walk Club. I am of the walk club variety, but I have some coworkers that are very speedy on the running side of things. So they'll post their latest runs and we cheer them on. And then what are you reading? Just giving book discussions on the latest that everybody's catching up on so we can engage with each other. And these are just fun ways to keep in touch and keep in contact when we're not in those meetings and not doing just the day-to-day of our business. And then also we look away to help give opportunity for our employees to support the local community. We would regularly on Fridays in our office get together for lunch, whether that be sandwiches or salads or whatever it is, and we would bring those in every week for our company. And so now what we're doing is we're saying, how can we help our employees make a statement that we want the businesses that we care about within our community to keep going after all of this is done. We want them to continue to be a stable part of our community, and especially the places that our employees like to frequent. So we give everybody $20 a week to spend with the local business so they can have their Friday lunch and then join us for that lunch meeting if they're able to. When you're sitting in the leadership chair, I think having a pulse on your team is a leadership responsibility. As I said at the very beginning, it's okay to not be okay. And sometimes your team's not going to be okay. They're going to have those days. They're going to have those times where they're just not feeling it. They're not as productive as they normally would be. And so what I would say is task your leadership team or your managers to try and engage with at least one employee or more, depending on your business side, per week, to just check in and see what they're doing and how they're doing. Make it no work talk, just like you're reaching out to your customers and your vendor partners and asking the same things. Check in with them, lead with empathy first, see what they need to help them be successful, and then how can you help them with their work and their home life? And then if you can and it makes sense for your business, deliver on those asks if you're able to do so. Second to that is check in with your leadership team. You've got the weight of your company on your shoulders. And as they say, you can't pour into others if you don't pour into yourself first. So, lift that veil that you wouldn't necessarily have with your line staff and check in with each other and say, how are you guys doing? You're putting on the strong face for most of the time. You're worrying about those day-to-day business decisions, and have those honest check-ins to make sure everybody's doing and have what they need to be able to show up and do their best every day. And then finally, if you're a business owner or a business executive, check in with yourself. There's, again, a mountain on your shoulders more like anybody else. Make sure you check in with yourself regularly so you can show up for your team, and give yourself the grace to do that. Even if it's something you wouldn't do in normal times, do what you can to check in and just be okay with yourself, and make sure you have that. Or ask a member of your leadership team to do that as well, so they regularly are checking in on you. That's okay. So shifting a little bit more away from actual company culture and into some do's and don'ts during social distancing, or stay-at-home orders, or whatever you may have in your location. From a business standpoint, here are the things we're seeing that are successful for our clients and who's doing really well, and from a do and a don't standpoint. So share what you're doing to address COVID-19 and make sure you safeguard your employees and your customers. Be open and honest about that. People want to know what they can expect whenever they come to you. How are you open? What does it look like? What are the safeguards that are there? And how can they expect to deal with you in this new normal? Be true to your brand and your personality. Don't change just because of the times. Embrace who you are. It's the reason your customers and your clients like you. So dig into that. Still put out that same persona and that same voice. Continue to respond to your customers' inquiries and questions. Help them get what they need to be successful in their life. Update and inform of new offerings or changes to your schedule or your menu. Take a look, make sure you've got the latest and greatest up there for your locations, whether they be in different locations, or the latest hours, the latest website, whatever is needed to make sure that you have the latest and greatest up there. Again, show empathy and care for your community. Join the conversations in your community. How can you support each other? How can you direct them to someone who can support them? Just make sure you're a part of those conversations, and then match the tone to the situation. It's okay to be positive. It's okay to fit that brand and personality you normally would have, but be realistic within the culture of what's going on around you. And as we've said, check and engage with your customers. How are they feeling? How can you support them? So what that looks like, just some suggestions of things you might be thinking about. Make sure you've got your profiles on things like Google and Yelp and Facebook and other places updated to provide the most accurate hours, information, phone numbers. What are you doing? Let people know how they can get a hold of you and give you business. So I've got some tips here. Update your hours in your about section on Facebook, post about your offerings, community outreach you're doing, promotions, your staff stories. Just use your voice and tell the business personality that you are, and show that off on Facebook and other places and other social media channels you use. And then also consider using Facebook ads if you're needing to attract people to you, to let them know that you're open. Utilize those paid tools to be able to reach people, so they know that they can frequent your business and engage with you. Same on Instagram and other places like that. Don't be afraid to show off your voice and your business persona there. On the don'ts, be careful about being overly self-promotional. This is the time to have that community bent and that thought, we're all in this together, we're all going to get through it together. Don't be that self-promotional person that's out there being a target for some negative attention. Don't go completely silent unless there's a good reason that you're doing so. Try and post some content on a regular basis if you can, even if it's just once a week. Let people know you're there, remind them that you're there. Share news or information that you have from vetted sources, the latest in your community, the latest updates. And also don't pretend like nothing's happening. Again, we're all facing this in a different way. So being able to adapt to what's happening around you while still having a positive attitude is a great thing. So I know there was a question that was put in or is about to be put in on what strategies that you've implemented. I'd love to hear what others have seen as successful, and then also be able to open it up for questions. So thanks as always for the opportunity. Really appreciate the time, and looking forward to questions and engaging with you further here.
This is fantastic, Chris. Thank you so much. So we're going to watch as we ask our webinar participants to hit that webinar poll, and you can choose any or all of those strategies that Chris has talked about up to this point. And we're also going to be asking you pretty soon to share some of your strategies and any advice you have. But what strategies, based on what Chris has talked about, have you implemented already? Those are up on the screen. We just ask that you start clicking away on that. Chris, I was thinking about the importance of this idea of over communication, and we wanted to support a local restaurant, and as I walked in to pick up the food, it was really impressive the way they had structured the pickup area. Everything was about 10 to 12 feet apart. Where all the food was placed was very clearly signed, and then all of the employees had matching masks, face coverings on, and so there was just this level of proficiency and expertise and care that had been taken along with the communication that went into it. And I found myself walking out thinking, there's a lot of security in that for people coming in this insecure world that we're living in right now with so much change. So I think that really illustrates how a business can think through, what message am I sending my customers right now, based on when we're having, if we're reopening and we have limited number of people in the store or whatever that looks like, it's a great opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the more that you can give those clear communication standpoints, whether they be verbal, non-verbal, the way that your business looks today, and if it's different from how it used to just show people how you've got their interests in mind, how you're keeping them safe, how you're keeping your employees safe. Doing all of those things is really important, because I don't know about you, but sometimes I forget what it's like to go outside now on week, I think 7 or 8 of working from home. It's hard to remember how to just walk into a restaurant and pick up your stuff. So getting that clear direction point is a great thing to do to help check in and make it easy for your customers.
So I hope you see that we've got some poll
Yeah.
responses back up on the screen, and 88% have done the work of checking in with a customer. That's really encouraging to see, followed by 54% joining conversations and adding additional technology for connection, and then over communicating their response and adding additional touch points for conversations with employees. So any insight on what you see there?
I love to see the checking in with customers. Again, I think that is just one of the best things that you can do right now. Again, not having an agenda, just seeing how they're doing. What do they need? Can you connect them with someone to help them do their business better, or their home life better? If it's just a business to consumer relationship, how can you make their lives a little bit better, and then know that they'll come back and return to you? And I would say, if you did that at the very start of this, or you did that even last month, now's a good time to go back and do it again, because as we know, it's changing where you are, what your state's doing, what your local municipality is doing. So don't be afraid to do that every couple of weeks and engage with folks. We're all having different levels of engagement from businesses, and those that are touching base with us in an authentic way, not just we're here to help way, is something that people are going to remember.
So I'm going to remind our participants that you have a Q&A box. If you have questions for Chris would love to answer those. And also, you can throw into the chat some additional things that you've done that you've seen really work well, that would be of help to all of us who are participating in this webinar. Let's talk a little bit about that additional technology. You mentioned Slack. I know from our perspective, we've really increased the use of Zoom. We have increased, we're not using Slack as an organization ourselves, but we're using what's called Microsoft Teams, and really exploring ways to do that. We have a phone system that has a number of features for chat and messaging, video options that we're really plugging into and using. Some other ideas that you have come to mind as you think about ways to explore technology?
Yeah, I mean, I think we've used collaboration tools like Teams and Slack that you've mentioned to completely, really impact our daily email traffic. So a lot of our email now just really comes from our outside partners and our clients who we have relationships with, and we communicate with mostly over email. But we have some that are on Slack, we have some that are on Basecamp and other collaboration tools. But we've said, hey, let's use Slack or Teams or whatever chat profile you use. Let's use that to cut down on the inner office emails, and let's drown out our own noise, and let's talk to each other there. And then the other thing we've done is that we've used video as a tool. So our office is focused on collaboration, and when we were in the office, a lot of our time together was just walking across the office to talk to each other with ideas and problems and challenges. So now, rather than just having text conversations, if it's something that's more than just a yes or no or a quick answer over chat, we actually take 2 seconds and do a quick video call, because we can solve so many more problems much faster that way.
And that leads into and segues into an interesting phenomenon that I think we're seeing. And we had talked about this before the webinar started, in that you're getting a phone call just doesn't cut it anymore. When you've got the opportunity to be face-to-face with somebody via video, that's what you're going to opt for. So let's talk about the way this is changing the way we communicate.
Yeah, I know. We were talking about before the broadcast started that for me personally, conference calls over phone feel a little forced. The pacing's not quite right. I can't see them. I don't know the body language. I don't know if they're thinking or if they're just done and want to get off, or they're paying attention to their email or what it is. So I like the video aspect of it, but I think we also have to recognize that the fatigue is real. Engaging all day long over video chats can be very stressful for folks, and even someone like me, who I always say I'm an extroverted introvert, by the end of the day, I kind of don't want to look at video calls anymore. But during the day, I want to engage that way. I want to see people. I want to have those interpersonal relationships that we would have had in the office or in person with a client, that we don't get now that the office isn't open.
So as a business, if you're thinking about, okay, how do I reach my customer where they're at and make sure that I am communicating with my customer the way my customer wants to be communicated with, you can put a messaging app on your smartphone. You can put Zoom on the smartphone, and you can actually have video calls right from there. It does not have to be, it makes it super simple. The other interesting thing from a technology standpoint that I realized, and I've told this story, it's been several webinars ago, but for those folks who are with us this time, walked into, had my appointment in an athletic shoe shop. I need to get some new running shoes, and was the only person in the store, and was talking to the business owner about, okay, what have you noticed? What are you doing different? And he said, I really had to eat crow, his words. He said, my team told me a few months ago that we really needed to allow texting on our landline. So the phone that they answer at the counter all the time. He said, I said that was a dumb idea, but I relented and we did it. He said, that's the single most important communication tool that we have had during this time, is the fact that people prefer to text. To your point, we get a little tired of the video, and adding that technology was a big help. So I thought that was an interesting approach for a business as well, to figure out new ways to this. Let's see. I'm going to start going through some of the questions that are coming in. Brenda is asking if we're going to share slides, and I guess that's a question for you, Chris. We're really going to put you on the spot. Are you willing to share your slides with this?
Of course, of course.
Thank you so much. And I'll tell folks that a recording of this is going to be made available, and we'll make sure to get that link out to you. So slides will be. What are ways, Kelsey asks, what are ways that companies can add to their culture without additional expense? Facebook groups with employees, question mark. So some of those other things that you're noticing.
Yeah, agreed. I think it's easy to be able to, say those things of like, hey, the $20 for lunch or whatever. But if that's not possible for your business, or it doesn't make sense for your business, I think Facebook groups, whatever inner office collaboration tool you use, creating those streams and ways that your folks can connect on things that aren't work related is going to be the most important. All those things that we take for granted from a day-to-day conversation point. How are your kids doing? How are your pets? Can I see the dog that all those things we usually talk about around the water cooler, leaning into those and giving people opportunities to connect in that way is great, and usually low cost or free.
Lynn is asking, and this is a unique question. I work mostly with the elderly. Most of them are only reachable via phone, as they may not have the technology to get on FaceTime or Zoom. It's worked okay thus far, but would be nice to offer a face-to-face option. What would you recommend as the most user-friendly if they don't own a computer or a smartphone?
Technology solutions are not exactly my area of expertise. I would say there are lots of good tools out there, and I'm sure there are some accredited members that would probably be able to help with that. The other thing I would think about, though, if it's not a face-to-face, and this is not just for folks who maybe work with an elderly population, but just in general, is go back to the handwritten letter. We encourage our staff one person a week to write a thank you note, a we're thinking of you note, and actually drop it in the mail. Send it to them. We don't always, I go check my mail and it's mostly junk mail these days. So whenever I get a note from a partner or a friend, it's a great thing that puts a smile on my face. So that's another low cost way to engage your customer base or those you work with. Write them a thank you note. Thank them for something they did months ago that you didn't have a chance to thank them for.
And I keep thinking of the number to the question of some of the more analog ways that we can have face-to-face conversations. I keep thinking of the number of pictures that I've seen in the press and on social media of grandparents, just the smile on their face and the joy of seeing grandkids through a window. So it's,
Yep.
and the number of, drive-by graduations, we're finding some interesting ways to approach this, still being within a socially safe distance, but seeing one another without the
Yeah.
use of technology. So if you can see somebody through a window, always safety is paramount. How do business owners deal with employees who have many new responsibilities at home and diminished work capacity, getting the work done that must get done?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to those of you who are out there trying to do school in the background while you're doing work and you've got the dog running around, it's a challenge. I mean, if I wouldn't be surprised if during this webinar you saw my door open and our dog get in because my wife needed to get on a conference call and we got to balance that out so he doesn't bark at the mailman as it goes by. I think being okay with not having the perfect business presentation that we would have had before. I think a lot of us in the past when we'd be working from home would want nothing to go wrong on a business phone call or a business video conference either. But we know that the life around us continues, whether we're in this office. My dogs are still out there probably looking for the mailman. So what we can do to meet folks where they are, talk to them on a regular basis and see how they're handling that balance. If they need any accommodations or if they need any changes to their daily workflow, work with them because it's going to show that one, you care and you're invested in them beyond just their work product. And two, it's going to give them more opportunities to deliver what they know they can deliver.
Chris Gislow, the Vice President of the Fury Group. Thank you so much. We have run the full 30 minutes of this webinar. You've given us a lot to think about, a lot to do to make our business better in this time, to survive and ultimately to thrive on the far end of what we're going through right now. So thank you so much for your time with us today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you all. Stay healthy, stay happy, and hope you all are well.
Thank you. With that, I will remind you that this webinar is being recorded. We're going to post that video to our special page, and that address is bbb-businesses, plural, .org, bbb.businesses.org/COVID-19, COVID-19. And that's the place to find this information along with upcoming webinars. I'll tell you also this coming Thursday at 2 o'clock Mountain Time, we have Stephen M.R. Covey. He is the author of The Speed of Trust. We're going to be talking about building trust and some real tangible tools that you can use in your business to be building trust with customers, because we're seeing that trust is paramount during this time. Stephen Covey, if the name sounds familiar, Stephen M.R. Covey is the son of Stephen Covey, the author of The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So Stephen M.R. Covey, globally known for his work around trust, joining us this Thursday. Make sure you register for that webinar as we will be having a fascinating conversation with Mr. Covey on Thursday. And we want you there live for that conversation. With that, thanks again to our guest today, Chris Gislow of the Fury Group. Huge help for us in defining and building culture in our organizations. Put it to work. Have a fantastic day.